Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today is part 2 of our 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. This series is broken down into 5 parts, with today's video featuring coffees 7 through 12, and the other videos featuring coffees 1 through 6, 13 through 18, and 19 through 24, with the winner of each of these videos, as well as 2 wildcards, making it into a 5th and final video to determine our favorite coffee from the 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar. So let's go ahead and introduce the coffees that will be featured in today's video, beginning with day 7, which is the CentroAmericano, a natural processed Costa Rica from Austrått Kaffibrenneri, based out of Sandnes, Norway. Day 8 is the Kiamugumo, wash processed Kenya from Mjøsen Kaffe, based out of Hamar, Norway. Day 9 is the Mulugeta, wash processed Ethiopia from Coffee Collective, based out of Frederiksberg, Denmark. Day 10 is the Geisha Espumoso, natural anaerobic processed Honduras from K&B Kafferosteri, based out of Laholm, Sweden. Day 11 is the Chire Farmers Coffee Project, a natural processed Ethiopia from Sognefjord Kaffibrenneri, based out of Sogndal, Norway. And then day 12 we have the Alotepec Metapan, wash processed El Salvador from Mjøsen Kaffe, based out of Hamar, Norway. Let's go ahead and move these out of the way for the time being. And as always, none of these cups are labeled anywhere except on the bottom. We just like to shuffle them around for good measure, as it gives us an opportunity to discuss what we have on our hands here today. And this is actually going to be a very tricky blind taste test video, given that we have 3 natural processed coffees on this table, and I'm fully expecting at least the natural Costa Rican coffee and the natural Ethiopian coffee to taste a bit red fruit forward, either raspberry or strawberry. So that might complicate that to begin with. In addition to that, the majority of the coffee roasters featured in this video are coffee roasters that I've actually never tried before. Mjøsen, K&B, and there's one more that I just don't have any familiarity with. So that in itself is also going to make things a little bit more difficult. I have a fair bit of familiarity with Coffee Collective, and I imagine that it's going to be not just the favorite, but the easiest coffee to pick out on this table, given that it is a wash-processed Ethiopian coffee. But outside of that, the wild card is possibly the wash processed El Salvadorian coffee and maybe the natural processed Ethiopia, given that natural processed Ethiopian coffees have had a pretty good year. And then the biggest underdog is probably going to be that natural anaerobic processed Honduran coffee, given that I don't like overly processed coffees. So it'll be interesting to see how that one performs. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and move these out of the way. I feel like the washed coffee should be pretty easy to pick out. I think that the difficult part is going to be the natural and natural anaerobic coffees, given that they should have some similar characteristics to them, and I haven't necessarily been the biggest fan of those coffees in general. So we're going to go ahead and start with this one right here, and just like in the last video, I'm going to try to detect which of these is the more processed coffees from the aroma so that I won't taint my palate to the point where I can't taste the washed coffees. I think we're good to start with, though this one could kind of go either way. All right, cup number 1. And I think that we did pick up one of the more processed coffees, though that being said, it's not too heavy. It does have a nice bit of cleanliness to it as well. And it is a bit red fruit forward. So I'm going to place it right here for right now. Like I said, still on the cleaner side of things, so not a terrible start. We're going to go ahead and move on to cup number 2. This one's definitely one of the more processed coffees. So far, we've started out by picking up 2 of the more processed coffees, which is going to make things a little bit more tricky. I like this one more than this one to start with. This one had a little bit more cleanliness to it, but we're going to go ahead and move on to cup number 3. None of them really have an overly strong aroma for being a more processed coffee, assuming that they are. And we picked up one of our washed coffees, and I'm immediately going to put it in first place for right now. I think that this one's really nice. I have a pretty good idea of what this coffee is, a little bit lighter bodied and a little bit lighter profiled. So first place for right now. Let's go ahead and move on to cup number 4. And this one's going to be our other processed coffee. And I feel like the fermentiness and the heaviness of this one is the most that it's been out of any of these coffees up to this point, which leads me to believing that it could be one of 2 coffees. And I'm probably leaning towards the anaerobic natural processed Honduran coffee, but I could have that wrong. It could also be the natural processed Costa Rican coffee, as I think that this is the natural Ethiopia. All right, let's move on to cup number 5. This one should be our Kenya, and I actually quite like it. It's not too overly savory, and it does have a nice bit of brightness to it. It's got a little bit of that stone fruit component as well. And I think it could actually push this coffee for being my favorite as of the ones that we've tried up to this point. But so far, I feel like it's been pretty direct. I think that these are 3 processed coffees. I think that these are 2 washed. So this one should be our final washed coffee. And I imagine it's probably going to be the El Salvador then. And I believe it is. And it's actually quite nice. And it's got some great sweetness to it. And for that reason, I'm going to put it all the way up to first place for right now. Going to run through these one more time. That one has to be the wash process. Was it an El Salvadorian coffee, I feel like? Yeah, washed El Salvadorian coffee. And it's because it has a lot of those Central American characteristics, and it's got some great sweetness in general. So that's where I'm ranking them for right now. I'm going to run through them one more time to see if I want to change anything. It's also got some nice brightness to it as well. Really nice coffee, especially if it is just a little bit more of a standard profiled coffee. All right, try this one real quick. Yeah, I think that one has to be our Ethiopia. Especially given when you're drinking these side by side and you feel the brightness of this one. This one should be our Kenya. And then try to determine these last couple ones. I feel like the second try, this one has to be our natural processed Ethiopian coffee. And we'll try these 2 one more time. Possibly our Costa Rican coffee. I imagine given the strong red fruits in this one probably lends itself towards being the Costa Rican. And this one is the most heaviness. It's got a little bit of a, we'll say, heavier profile in terms of that heavier chocolate aspect, a little bit more of those winey attributes. So it's probably going to be our natural anaerobic processed Honduran coffee. Let's go ahead and start taking some guesses. So this one right here I said was our El Salvadorian coffee, which is number 12. So I think it should be, yeah. Okay, this one right here I said was our Ethiopian coffee. So I feel like that one was number 9. This one right here I said was our Kenya, which is number 8. This one right here is our natural Ethiopia, which is number 11. Looking, okay. And then these 2, I said this one is our natural anaerobic processed Honduran coffee. So 7. I think that this one's our Costa Rican, which means that this final one should be whatever the last number is, 10. Okay, and I'm fine if I get these 2 wrong, given that a lot of natural processed coffees in this vein can be a little too much for me to begin with. So we'll see how we did. This one right here I said was the natural anaerobic Honduran, so it should say number 10. Okay, now I'm very confident that I got all these right. I mentioned that it was going to be so tricky to figure this out given that I don't have enough familiarity with a lot of these coffee roasters, but I'm just going off of experience. And in this case, I said, this is the heaviest coffee on this table. It's the most processed coffee on this table. It's gotta be the natural anaerobic. I could still get these 2 mixed as they're both pretty red fruit. This one a little bit more raspberry, this one a little bit more of that kind of Ethiopian like strawberry, but I could still have them wrong. So this one I said number 7, which is the natural Costa Rican coffee. And it is. And if I recall correctly, this one I think is actually a Geisha coffee, but even then it's not necessarily the cleanest in general. I've had similar experiences to this with other coffees we've had in the KaffeBox advent calendar. I think I'm thinking of the Morgone coffees, which were also natural processed Costa Rican Geishas. All right, this one right here I said was the natural Ethiopian, number 11. So let's see if we got that one right. And this one threw me off because the aroma itself wasn't overly heavy, and then the presentation of the coffee itself wasn't necessarily overly heavy either. And I think that goes with the experiences I had with natural Ethiopian coffees this year, which weren't the heaviest that they've been in years past. This one had a little bit more cleanliness to it. If anything, it was slightly faint, so I'm kind of curious as to why it turned out that way. I'd be curious to try this coffee on its own. All right, last 3. This one right here I said was our Kenyan coffee, which should be number 8. Yeah, all right, let's see if we got this one right. And yes, absolutely. The brightness is the giveaway. And I mentioned that from the first time trying it, though it does have some really nice fruit components to it as well. I think that this one is on the better side of Kenyan coffees. I think that the top 3 we have in this video, I enjoyed a lot more than the top 3 we had from the last one, as I think that this is a more enjoyable Kenyan coffee for me. All right, this one right here should be our Ethiopian, so it should say number 9 for the Coffee Collective washed Ethiopian coffee. Nowhere near as good as the Aga for me. This one's a bit more citric, as opposed to the Aga, which was very stone fruit forward. So I'm fine with this one. It could possibly be one of our wild cards, but I think that there are just coffees that will probably place higher than this one. So that means that our winner is number 12, which is the wash processed El Salvadorian coffee from Mjøsen Kaffe. My first time ever trying this coffee roaster. I feel like they had another coffee on this table. Mjøsen Kaffe, they had the Kenya. Oh, okay, well, that's fun then. My first experience with this coffee roaster is pretty positive, as I felt like they did a pretty good job with this El Salvadorian coffee and this Kenyan coffee. As soon as this video is over, I'm going to go and research what roasting machine that they use now, because I'm kind of curious to see what they use given my experiences with their coffees here. But this one advances to the final, and I would be kind of surprised if this one did, but we'll see what else comes in this advent calendar. But I'm going to leave this one at that. 6 out of 6, 12 out of 12 so far. Been, I would say, relatively easy so far, but hopefully it gets a bit more challenging from this point going forward. If you guys are enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here is part 2 of our 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. Thank you for watching.